Have you ever heard the phrase 72 virgins and wondered where it actually came from? Maybe you've heard it in movies, news reports, political commentary, or even internet memes. It's usually mentioned casually, almost like it's a well-established religious fact, often tied to Islamic martyrs and the promise of paradise. But what if I told you that the number 72 isn't found in the Quran at all? That much of what people think they know about this idea is built on misunderstandings, weak sources, and modern exaggeration. Today, we're going to unpack the origins of the 72 virgins narrative, explore where it really comes from, how it became distorted over time, and why it continues to show up in modern media and extremist propaganda. This isn't about defending or attacking any belief. It's about separating myth from scripture. Stay with me. Let's start at the foundation, the Quran, Islam's primary religious text. The Quran does mention beings known as houri. They are often translated into English as pure companions, maidens of paradise, or sometimes heavenly spouses. These descriptions appear in verses that talk about the rewards awaiting the righteous in the afterlife. For example, Surah Al-Waqi'ah, verses 22 to 24 says, "And with them will be companions with beautiful, modest eyes, like pearls well protected." What's crucial here is what isn't said. There is no number mentioned, no 72, no fixed count at all. The Quran never quantifies these companions, nor does it frame them as a sexual transaction for martyrdom. In Islamic theology, these descriptions are widely understood as symbolic, attempts to describe eternal bliss using imagery familiar to human beings. The Quran repeatedly emphasizes that paradise is something no human eye has seen and no mind can fully imagine. These verses aren't meant to be read like a contract or reward chart, but as metaphorical language pointing to peace, purity, and fulfillment beyond earthly experience. So if the Quran doesn't mention 72 virgins, where does the number come from? The answer lies in certain hadith, reports attributed to the Prophet Muhammad that were collected decades or even centuries after his death. Some of these hadith claim that martyrs receive a specific number of companions in paradise, including the number 72. But here's the critical detail that often gets left out. Many of these hadith are considered weak or disputed by Islamic scholars. In hadith science, not all reports are treated equally. Scholars closely examine who transmitted them, how reliable those narrators were, and whether the reports contradict stronger sources. Because of these issues, many scholars rejected a literal interpretation or rejected the reports entirely. Even classical theologians emphasized that paradise cannot be reduced to physical pleasure alone. In traditional Islamic thought, paradise is described as a state of nearness to God, peace, and eternal satisfaction, not a numeric sexual reward. Fast forward to the 20th century, when Islam increasingly entered Western political and cultural discourse. During this period, certain translators, commentators, and media outlets began highlighting the 72 virgins idea, often stripped of its scholarly context. What was once a disputed theological concept became a sensational headline. In Western media, the phrase evolved into shorthand for religious fanaticism. It showed up in movies, satirical cartoons, political commentary, and newspaper articles, often repeated without explanation or nuance. By the late 20th century, 72 virgins had become almost inseparable from the Western image of Islamic martyrdom, even though most Muslims had never understood it that way, and many had never even encountered the idea in their own religious education. In the modern era, extremist groups seized on this distorted narrative and weaponized it. Groups like Al-Qaeda and ISIS used the promise of 72 virgins as a recruitment tool, particularly targeting young, vulnerable men. The message was simple, crude, and emotionally manipulative. Die in battle, and you'll be rewarded with immediate pleasure in paradise. This framing was never mainstream Islamic teaching, but it was effective propaganda. By repeating the number 72 again and again, extremist groups turned a fringe idea into a psychological incentive. Global media then reported on this propaganda, often without clarifying that it was a distortion, creating a feedback loop that reinforced the myth worldwide. Today, the phrase 72 virgins exists more as a pop culture trope than a religious concept. You see it in memes, stand-up comedy, cartoons, political jokes, and online arguments. It's frequently used to mock or oversimplify Islam, reducing a complex belief system to a crude stereotype. The result is widespread misinformation. Many people genuinely believe Islam promotes sexual rewards for martyrdom, when in reality the Quran emphasizes ethical conduct, accountability, mercy, and spiritual fulfillment far more than any physical imagery of the afterlife. So why does this myth refuse to die? First, misinterpretation of texts. Symbolic language and weak hadith are often treated as literal doctrine. Second, media sensationalism. 72 virgins is shocking, memorable, and easy to repeat. Third, extremist propaganda, which deliberately amplifies the idea for recruitment purposes. Together, these forces transformed a disputed and symbolic concept into a global misconception, one that often says more about modern politics and media than about religion itself. In the end, the 72 virgins narrative is far more myth than religious reality. The Quran never mentions it. Authentic sources don't support it. And its modern popularity comes largely from propaganda, mistranslation, and repetition. Islam's vision of paradise is described as spiritual, peaceful, and beyond human comprehension, not a literal reward system based on numbers and sexual conquest. So the next time you hear the phrase 72 virgins, remember, you're not hearing scripture. You're hearing a story shaped by history, distortion, and modern myth-making. If you found this breakdown helpful, like the video, subscribe for more deep dives into misunderstood ideas, and drop a comment with other myths you'd like us to unpack.